This show is sponsored by my new business, MA Capital. I had success in my previous business acquiring companies before I exited earlier in the year. MA Capital is set up to support business owners on that journey, whether they want to sell now or they want to set up for a profitable exit later in the future. If this has piqued your interest and you'd like to work with me, head over to macapital.co.uk. So welcome back to the Fast Pound, Slow Pound podcast. Today we've got on a business owner in the estate agency space. Now, Craig has sold things, properties, anywhere from 6,000 right the way through to 2.1 million. He's also sold petrol stations, done around 3,000 sales transactions over his 14-year career. So if there's anything worth knowing about sales, Craig is your man.
I'm the man, allegedly, yeah.
You're the man. Welcome to the podcast, Craig. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
No worries,
Yeah,
mate.
appreciate it.
Guys, just a quick one. Over 75% of our listeners aren't subscribed. So if you are enjoying this, please show some support by liking, commenting, or subscribing wherever you're watching the podcast. It'll allow us to keep getting on amazing guests, and it's massively appreciated. Back to the show. That's obviously, a bit of background on you, but tell me where it all started.
Very strange beginnings, really. I was at college, and my ultimate aim, I wanted to go in the RAF or be a fireman. And I diverted away from that. I had a knee injury. And back then, the universities used to be quite proactive. So if you used to apply for one course, then you used to get a phone call when you used to have a few places that were empty. I can remember I was sat on the sofa at my parents' house. So I think it must have been about 19, 20. And the parents had probably freshly told me, you've got to do something with your life, because I was only working in the factory at the time. And the phone rang, and it was Sheffield Hallam University. And it was somebody doing a sales pitch on me to try and get me to do a property course, because he had spaces left through clearing, which is bizarre.
A property course at uni?
Yeah. And they actually used, I can remember the sales hook. They said, well, at some point you might get to build gyms. So they linked gyms into the fact that I wanted maybe to go down the physio route. So that was their hook. Yeah. My mum and dad were putting pressure on me at that time, as you can imagine, to say you can't work in the factory for the rest of your life, which in hindsight was right. And because it was Sheffield, I just thought, why not? So I said, yep, sign me up. And I think within 2 weeks, I was moving into my student house in Sheffield. I've always been a bit impulsive.
And then you enrolled onto this property course?
Yeah, it was business property management and property studies, so it was a degree. I moved along, and it involved like surveying qualification as well. So I was there for 5 years.
Nice.
I must admit, the social life was the main attraction. So I struggled to attend the 10 or 12 hours a week, because I was too busy enjoying myself.
Love life. So you were what, you 18, 19 at the time? What year is it?
I think I was slightly older. I think I was about 20, but it was 2000, and I think it was 2000 that I went, actually, 2001. So yeah, couldn't really afford to probably go at the time. My parents weren't really in a position to support me financially, so they did what they could, but they said basically you're going to have to finance yourself. Probably worked quite well, to be honest, because then it got my mind thinking, how can I make money to obviously pay the bills and feed myself.
Tough love, isn't it? But it's the right thing to do.
It is, yeah. And I think you need that, because I could have quite happily stayed at home, and I could have been sat working in the factory now, and I wouldn't be sat here talking about anything, because I wouldn't have amounted to anything.
So 5-year uni course, then what?
Well, finished. I went into a surveying job for a company in York. Unluckily, I started, and within about 6 months, I started noticing the contractors were coming in on a Friday and doing like a sit-down protest in the office, wanting to get the wages paid. That seemingly got more and more severe, so I started thinking, well, obviously something's not quite right here. I saw a job at Reeds Rains for like a business, a branch manager, fast-track course, and I just thought it's the right time to jump, so my estate agency career began.
What do you reckon of fast-track courses? Sound like good on the face of things. Is it something that you've done within your business? Like
in hindsight, it's a corporate term, really. You had to be a degree. You have to have a degree. I think it was a 2 or above. Your degree didn't really come into that type of. Well, it doesn't really help me in my industry that I've had so far. But yeah, it was a decent course, but just your normal corporate sort of background. You did lots of training courses. You didn't get your hands dirty very often. Yeah, and it sort of dragged out, and we got placed within a branch eventually.
So that was your first foot into industry?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
How old were you then?
I think then I would have been 23, 24. I'm trying to get the numbers right, yeah, maybe 25 maybe. So yeah, it was my first proper. I used to work in Darlington, funnily enough, just down the road, and it used to be Reed's Range back then.
Okay. So you were at Sheffield, then you went to York, and then you were up Darlington?
Yeah.
You weren't too fussed about moving around?
No, my dad's probably set that tone because he used to be an accountant in his youth, and we had to shift around quite a bit when I was younger. So I think I went to about 4 or 5 different schools, which obviously is tricky. You never really get used to having the same social circle because you just get to know people, then you shift on. So that's probably why I was so impulsive when the university offer came up, because I'm not afraid of starting again somewhere. I don't think it's a bad trait necessarily.
No, I don't know if you've read Stephen Bartlett's book, but one of the things in there is like, it's one of his pieces of advice is to know when to quit or know how to quit well. Which, you know, when you read a book, only certain things stick out in your head, don't they? And that was the one from, I think it's Happy Sexy Millionaire it's called. And
I'm actually listening to his podcasts and things at the moment, his audiobooks.
Yeah, it's in Happy Sexy Millionaire. One of these things is like, look, know when to quit, know when you're actually not quitting, but you're actually sort of starting again, or quote unquote quitting to actually do something better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people say quit is actually a really bad word because it comes across as a negative, but obviously quitting isn't necessarily a negative. It just means you're readjusting and going in a different direction.
That's how he puts it, yeah.
But yeah, like obviously quitting's quite a frowned on thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're in Reed Range at this point. Is this early 2000s, early
yeah,
20s?
And obviously show my age, but it was around about 2005. The memory's a little bit sketchy, but the next step really, I got to the point I wasn't particularly enjoying working for Reed's Range. One sunny summer night, I met a lady. I was single at the time. She worked in Scotland and lived in Scotland, but she was on a placement. She did teeth implants. So she was down getting training, and she was working in Darlington for about a year or so, and obviously got to know her and things developed. And then she went back, and I wasn't happy at Reed's Range, and we'd had a brief chat, and she was saying, would you fancy working up here at some point? And just on a whim again, I just thought, you know what, I'll start applying for jobs way outside of my pay scale in Scotland, Glasgow, I fancy a bit of Glasgow life, or Edinburgh. I'll fire some off, and you never know. Didn't expect a thing, and didn't even get responded to on quite a few. And then applied for Christie & Co., which is like was Europe's biggest commercial agent.
I can picture them now. They had a pink logo.
Yeah.
The same people, yeah?
Yeah. I got a positive response, and then long and short, I got a job offer to do retail in Scotland. So within a matter of weeks, I was packed up just before Christmas that year, moved up with who I thought was the love of my life. Sometimes, as happens, within 18 months to 2 years, I realised it wasn't the love of my life. And then obviously talking about quitting, I had a decision to make to a stay. I was having a brilliant time up in Scotland, though, I must admit. I won't go into details, but I was on a good wage, had a very nice flat, really good social life, and I could have quite happily stayed there, really. I had a good set of friends, but home's always home. I only went up there really for her. The job was like a side decision. So yeah, I just decided, you know what, I want to go back to where my home is, and I quit.
What was 2005 agency like?
In residential or commercial or both?
In both?
Both. Very different, to be honest. It was still quite busy. It was still in that time where really you put a property on the market and the phones would ring off the hook, and you didn't have to be a good estate agent at that time. Things just sold on their own, so as long as you priced it right, which is fairly straightforward stuff, then put it on the market. It was just all about winning the instruction, really, which to a certain degree is the same now. But yeah, selling was easy because you didn't have to sell. It just sold itself. And then obviously like the HIPS packs came in. After I'd moved back, I got a job at Bridgeford, so we went through like the HIPS pack, which was obviously the upfront survey in essence that you had to have done. So that was a fun time as well.
Just touch on into a bit more detail what the HIPS pack is.
It was just like a mini survey for the property that you had to have done up front, and strangely, that's what Scotland do. But it had the EPC in, and it had just basically a report. Surveyor went round, multiple pages. It had searches in it as well, and it cost about 450, 500 back then. I can remember the day they got cancelled actually, because people that had paid for them, say on the Monday, when it got cancelled, they gave no notice. So if somebody had paid for it on the Monday, the job had been done on a Wednesday, and they cancelled it on a Thursday. So there was a big influx of people coming in the office saying, I want my money back. It's said on TV, I don't need it now. I want my money back. Well, sorry, mate, the job's already been done. So it was a rough couple of days.
Was this early times of Rightmove as well? Or was Rightmove around then?
It was, to be honest, because going back to Reed's Range, one of my first jobs, we were still sticking photographs onto brochures. Obviously, it was a brochure world then, where people would come in and say, can I have that property, or can I have any property between 80 and 100 in that area? And you'd have to print off the brochure, give them the actual paper copy, and they'd walk out with it. I don't remember at that point really dealing with that many emails. There must have been some, because we're not talking 1980s or something. But yeah, it was very much a hard copy world still back then.
Yeah. So 2005-ish, moving on from that, what was the journey from there?
Yeah, I went to Bridgeford's in Ripon. Obviously a very different market to what I'm operating in now in Middlesbrough. Lovely, well, it's classed as a city, isn't it, Ripon? Because it's got cathedral, but a lot more expensive houses. The investments really you were lucky to get an investment below probably about 140,000 for a small terrace, I think, 130,000.
Were people was it an investment market there?
Bizarrely, yeah, and the rents weren't even that good in comparison. So obviously there's a market where people just want it because it's in a better location and lower yield, but obviously people have the security that prices are generally going to go up, so you can have some capital growth. But
was it Southern Monies still then?
A lot more local, to be honest. Like Harrogate tapping in, because Harrogate prices are higher than Ripon in the main, so you had some of the wealthy in Harrogate that were just driving a few miles down the road and investing in Ripon. There was a couple of people buying holiday homes from outside the area, but yeah, in the main it was first-time buyers, family owners, or local investors just from down the road, really. So,
does anything stick out from you from going into Reed Range to sort of at Bridgeford? Do any stories stand out in terms of, how you had to cut your teeth as being like a junior and, working your way up?
It's quite tricky. Going in at a more senior level, like doing the fast track at Reed's Range, you sort of circumnavigate all the people that have maybe been in there for 3-4 years working their way up. And you did feel bad for it, and you did feel at times that you were seen as that university person's come in and he doesn't know as much as I do, which to be honest was probably right to a certain degree. So Reed's Range, I think trying to get the respect of your colleagues, so you have to do something to win the respect, and obviously that comes down to you as a person to smash your targets or go above and beyond or lead by example. So that sort of taught me really, I can't sit on my ass here, I really need to do something, because otherwise you've got people looking at you thinking, where's he come from? Why is he here? Why is he earning more money, even though it wasn't great money at the time? I think I was on more money than most in the office, so the pressure was there. And obviously Bridgeford's as well, I came in as a branch manager, you take over staff that are already in place. They're all full of sadness for their former manager going, and they were full of well, he used to do it this way, he used to do it that way, and you've got to overcome that without being too bossy. So it's difficult. It's not always easy going in as more senior, because you've still got a hell of a lot to prove to people. Yeah,
it makes sense. What's a good estate agent to you? You mentioned a good estate agent there, but what is that to you?
To be honest, I still believe it, even though the market's changed. It's not difficult to sell a property, so whether you're sourcing or whether you're selling it traditionally online or wherever you're doing it, it's not difficult to actually do the arm's length deal of selling a house, because if you get the right house at the right price in the right area and you've got a buyer, it sells itself, but it's consistency really. And you've got to stay professional as well. You're under quite a lot of pressure at times, and you deal with clients who are quite demanding. It's quite difficult sometimes. You have to stay consistent every day. You can't let your emotions get the better of you. You've got to stay on the same track consistently, which I think is quite difficult. Some people just can't manage it. It's quite a skill, I think, to stay
managing
consistent.
Your emotions, you said, and be consistent.
Yeah.
In terms of what your level of performance and how you show up every day and put the reps in, do you mean?
Yeah, well, if you have a good day, sometimes it's quite easy to celebrate, and if you have a bad day, you feel down on yourself. But the chances are, in those days, you haven't done anything different. It's just results have gone for you or they haven't gone for you. But you can get too carried away with your own pomp. You can think, actually, I've had a good run, and you start getting a bit cocky with it, and you let your standards slip a bit. You think, actually, people should be selling through me anyway, so I don't really have to make the effort anymore. And you get to that point where you're full of your own ego a little bit. I think you just need to try and stay consistent, good times or bad times, to stay steady all the way through. I think that's the key, really. Longevity is a big thing for me.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a secret of life, that, isn't it? You know, don't let whatever's going on in life, maybe don't let it run away with you, because it ebbs and flows, isn't it?
It is.
And if you can manage your emotions outside of work, and just get maybe 1% better every day, and understand that, yeah, because highs and lows can be draining, can't they?
It is, yeah, and it leads to a lot of self-doubt. It's quite easy to get, if things start going against you and you have a little bit of bad luck in your life, you can start questioning yourself easily. And I've done that a few times, even in the last few years, where I've done, in my eyes, a good job and been consistent and been successful for a long time. And you have a bad spell where things are going against you, and you start questioning yourself, thinking, have I still got it? You know you have, and the answer is yes, I have still got it. But you might go through a day, or you might even drag onto a week where you think, I'm not cut out for this anymore. Have I still got it? Why aren't I getting the result, or why are these things going against me? And you just need to snap yourself out of it quickly. How you recover from your failures or successes, or your lack of successes, is ultimately more important than how you handle your successes, really, because we all go through a bad spell. I'm sure you've had a few.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's a daily thing. One day can be great, and the next day be like so sort of down, can't you? In terms of like, I don't understand why I was so happy for yesterday, sort of thing. Like, I don't know what I was celebrating.
Yeah.
When it all just seems really, it seems really, I wouldn't say negative, but it seems like there's such a long way to go brightening it, and then I can be a bit overwhelming, can't it? You know, but it was only yesterday that I was so happy, and
Yeah, exactly.
and like pat myself on the back and stuff. So
I think sometimes as well, if you're handling staff or like you're the head of your business, then you've got to worry about everybody else as well, and you're not just worrying about your own successes or your own failures or how you're feeling at that moment in time in your life. You've got to worry about everybody else, and it's like your family. You worry about your family first, and sometimes you put yourself last. So there's been many times in my career where I've been having sleepless nights about a member of my staff's love life, because they've been really upset about it and they're worried and they don't know how it's going to work out. And I have literally been laid looking at my bedroom ceiling at 2 a.m, tossing and turning. You think, what are you doing? Like, I'm worrying about somebody else's. I've got enough to worry about myself. But you need to be quite resilient with it. You do get emotionally involved with your team and your clients as well. Same thing.
yeah, it's funny that, to be fair. So, before we go on to you starting on, that business owner journey, sort of take me through from you're at Bridgefords, and then how do we get to there?
There was a branch in Middlesbrough. It was Best of Weaves, which was part of the Bridgefords and Rentons group. And the Middlesbrough branch, we used to go to these like manager meetings, and for whatever reason, it was just always in the main a bit of a mess. And it was a big branch, and everybody said, oh, it's got loads of potential. And you used to get the managers used to come in. Fast forward 9 months, used to be away, and somebody else would come into the meetings. You get to know them, and they'd say, oh, it's just a nightmare. Then they'd go. Working in Ripon was fairly easy, and I think it was too easy for me. I couldn't get my teeth into anything. There wasn't that much competition. There wasn't a big market to aim at, and I didn't have a buzz. I got used to working in Glasgow when I was doing the commercial, and it was all a bit wheeler-dealer sort of style, and you get used to speaking to people in a certain way, and bit of creativity to get a deal done, and I just didn't have that in Ripon, because you're dealing with a different class of person. And then there was a massive issue at the Middlesbrough branch, and there was a manager that had long been maligned, and eventually I think he got let go, or he resigned, or however it worked out. And I just thought, you know what, I fancy a challenge, and that was the biggest challenge in the region. It was losing 100,000 a year, and it had done for the most recent and the previous. So losing £100,000 a year, which is horrendous.
How old were you then?
I think I would have been, counting back, so it would have been 8 years ago. So yeah, I've been early 30s at that point. And I didn't particularly have any dependents, and I didn't have any particular worries, and I didn't have a mortgage back then and things like that. So if I was going to take a risk, I just thought, you know what, Teesside's home. I was born in Redcar, so you know what,
Oh, you born
it's
in
a
Redcar? I
challenge.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought, obviously, with you being a Villa fan,
I know a lot of people ask that. You can actually see I've got a Aston Villa
claret and blue on.
Christmas jumper on today.
Yeah.
But story behind that is literally I got bought a scarf and a pencil case when I was a young lad.
Yeah.
And that was it, and just stuck with it. I like the claret and blue. I just got a scarf and a pencil case, and literally, I think I was about 3-year-old, 4-year-old, just stuck with it.
Were they successful at that time then?
They were a little bit, yeah.
Won the European Cup,
yeah, we won the European Cup, which was like I was very obviously infant at that time. But then we had the David Platt days and Tony Daly's and things like that, who probably before your time. But yeah, we had a decent team, and then it's just been rubbish for about 10 years. But we're on the uplift now, so we're doing all right.
Yeah, I think second or third in the Champions League. We're seeing top 5 maybe, or whatever it is. We're doing well.
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to get my son to be a Villa. Well, I'm not trying. He's going to be a Villa fan. I've already decided. He's already got a Villa shirt. We're on the season ticket list, funnily enough, for Villa Park. So we're going to go down Villa Park once every other week. Once we get a season ticket in place.
I never knew you were born in Redcar. Yeah.
I don't shout it loud, but yeah, I was there until the age of 2. So yeah, then we shifted around a bit, moved to different schools.
I'm with you. With your dad being an accountant, did he have his own business? Is that where was he entrepreneurially, or was he always?
To be honest, he worked for the council. He worked for the council for a hell of a long time, and he had quite a senior job within the council. And he did the same thing as me. My mum's dream and his dream were to basically run a business together. And basically, my dad quit his job. Obviously, quitting's quite a big thing in this podcast, but yeah, he quit his job. They bought a shop in Darlington, just off Geneva Road. It was like a grocery store and bakery. And I ran it for about 3 years, and that was before there was massive supermarkets everywhere. So they used to be really busy, and I can remember I used to help out with the cash and carry and things, and I used to go down and help in the shop. I can remember times where the shop was full of stock, and we had all these foods on, we had loads of cigarettes behind the counter, and looking back now, I can remember when the amount of stock that I had used to start petering down, and we only had 2 tins and used to stretch them out to cover the shelves. And ultimately, in hindsight, they were struggling because the supermarkets opened nearby and the business dropped, and ultimately they got to the point they had to hand the keys back. And that knocked them back for a hell of a long time. And then my dad had a massive back operation, which led to him being out of work then for about 2-3 years. So they're delving into being self-employed didn't work very well, and most of my dad at that time was when I was deciding whether I should do it or not. When I was at Bridgeford's, he was full of, just be careful, son, because you're good at your job, but it doesn't mean you're going to be an automatic success.
It's my dad and my granddad's favourite saying that. Be careful, son. Be careful.
It's right in a way. Their braveness affected them for quite a bit. So he obviously didn't want me to go down the same route, which I totally appreciate. But again, I'm quite impulsive. When I was at Bridgeford's, again, I got to the point, after much success, we'd turned the branch round. The second full year, we were top profit-making branch on the estate agency side. I got a white Range Rover hired from a lad that I knew in Middlesbrough, and all the staff drove down. My staff drove down to Cheadle in this big, fancy, pimped-out white Range Rover. So we made quite the entrance, like we're from Middlesbrough.
Just head office?
It was just, they'd rebranded, and the Bridgefords was based in Cheadle, and it was Rentons and Bairstow up here, but Bridgefords took over. So yeah, we went down there, had a hell of a night, but yeah, we had 2 or 3 good years there. I had a really good negotiator work for me as well, called Malcolm. Bless him, he died a few years ago, but he was one hell of a salesman. So if anybody asks me about the best salesman I've worked with, it's hands down Mal Percival.
Why was he the best?
He just had that ability. He was, I think he was about early 40s, but he came across as a kid, but like a likeable kid. He was very young at heart, and he just made everybody laugh. So whether they were whatever demographic they were from, Malcolm would have them laughing within a few minutes, and they warmed to him so much. And to a certain degree, we didn't even have to do a sales pitch. He used to go out and sell a house, and because he did give good advice, people just warm to him, and he'd get a sale agreed out of nothing, and he'd go out to do 4 viewings, and he'd come back and say, "Oh, I've sold 2, by the way." And like just be really eager, and didn't have to ask him to work extra hours. He just put his hand up. He used to always refer to me as his gaffer because we had like a very close friend relationship, and he just said, "I will never let you down." And if I needed a hand, he'd turn up. I didn't even have to ask him to turn up, which is quite rare.
So was this branch manager role the first role you'd had at that senior level, or had you been in previous senior roles to that?
It was classed as a large branch, Middlesbrough, just because of the area and how much sort of catchment area it covered. So it was classed as a big branch, and we had a lot of staff. I think we had like 6 staff on the sales team. So yeah, it was a lot of pressure, and I went in there, and there was somebody who had a grievance in, so had been put into a different office. There was somebody on long-term sick because they weren't very happy, and then every other member of staff was just totally pissed off with life because they'd been suffering at the hands of the manager that had been there. Basically, by the sounds of it, has been lying in his own pocket, and it was just a mess. It was like a proper mess. I'd been there 2 weeks and just thought, "Craig, what on earth have you done here?" And I'd probably at that point, if I'd got a return ticket to Ripon, I probably would have gone at that point. It was that bad. It was awful.
What did you do that had the biggest impact on that business?
Got rid of all the rubbish and the problems, because I then just had to try and get the staff turned around because everybody was demotivated and everybody had just given up. And I just sat them down individually, asked them what the problems were, what would they change, what needs to be changed, what are they good at, what are they not very good at, what do they need help with, what can we do as a team to turn this round. And then the things that they said they were good at, I sort of tried to encourage that. And right, so if you're good at doing that, we're going to put some time in your diary for you to do that. I want you to do that more. What aren't you very good at? Well, if you're not very good at it, you need training, or if you don't enjoy doing that aspect, we'll just take you off doing it. Focus on what you're good at. And then just set them like achievable targets. Like, we can't go from 100 grand to instant profit. So what can we do? We want to get the loss down to very close to 0 in your first year. So what can we do? We need to get the instructions up. Because if we get the instructions up to that level, we'll sell roughly 50-60%. So based on our average fee, how many do we have to sell in a month to get us to that target at the end of the year? So then how many do we have to list? And if we have to list that many, how many valuations do we need to go out to? So how many can we get that many valuations, all based on the ratios and things. And then set it down on daily targets to say, right, if we have to do 10 valuations a week, we've only got 3 in the diary, how are we going to get 7 in? And then let the guys tell us, like, well, we've got a database, we could ring the database. Yeah, great idea, you go and ring the database. Well, we've got all the MAs that we've been out to, haven't gone on the market. Great, well, you ring them and we'll try and get them on the market then. We've got a buyer that wants to buy in that catchment area. Well, great, we'll print some leaflets off, get yourself in the car, go and drop the leaflets. And like set everybody little tasks, but then everybody came back at the end of the day, I've done my bit, and then you put the result together and it just clicked, it worked.
Yeah. So obviously you just managed it a lot better, put the people in places where they needed to be, and then that turned out to be a success.
I think sometimes, like, if you're the senior, you think you have to tell people a lot. Like, I'm the boss, I tell you what to do. But then if you actually speak to people and ask them what they think we should do, you've got to have your agreement with it, but you get their ideas as well. And if you set them off to do an idea that they think is a good idea and you agree, then they're more motivated to do it. But if you say, right, you've got to do that, and they don't agree with it, they'll probably go and do it, but they won't give it the best shot because they don't want to do it. So it's just working together, really. I try to get my staff speaking to me more than I have to speak to them, which I think is a big thing.
Yeah. I think there's potentially 2 types of management styles, isn't it? One, like you said, like you just said there, staff bring the ideas to the table, and there's more that dictator, isn't it? Like, do this, and this is how it's done. So did you carry that style right the way through to when you actually you were essentially a business owner before you're actually a business owner at that point then, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which
is what gets you thinking, because you are running the business from top to bottom. You're taking away the stresses, but then you aren't the business owner. And we used to get like a commission rate as a branch manager, and in essence, peanuts, really, in the great scheme of things. You're knocking yourself silly for somebody, really. You're earning it for the directors or the area managers or what, and you're flogging yourself silly, and I did that for years. to the detriment of my health, really. I didn't realise how bad I'd run myself down until I just really got to a point where I was not sleeping, I was knackered, I was irritable. At that time, probably drinking too much, but not in like a severe George Best way, but relaxing in the pub quite commonly, and you start getting in a routine, and you start eating out in the pub, and you start drinking in the pub, and before you know it, you put weight on, you feel even worse. And I think we just had my engagement to Leanne, and I just basically decided one day, that's it, I need to change it. So I went off on sick just to give me some time to think. And then I got approached by, it was a company called T Surveyors back then, who were in Middlesbrough, a small independent estate agent, and they offered the opportunity to sort of buy in and become a partner. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, I was too keen to get away, and I should have asked more questions, but I ended up doing it, got involved. I think I was about 7 or 8 years ago now. I started with T Surveyors, and we rebranded to Easy Move more recently. And then we managed to get Easy Move, obviously doing decent numbers as well, doing the same thing, same process. So I brought the idea, probably what you're doing with like some business inputs and things that you're looking at doing, bring fresh ideas, and that's why I brought to T Surveyors, and then things went quite well for a couple of years. But same as when I moved to Scotland, I moved there for a relationship which I thought was the right thing to do at the time, and it was the right relationship. That turned out not to be the right decision, and this business relationship long term just transpired not to be the right decision. We had probably a good 18 months and I was enjoying it. I then just started getting frustrated, and business started going backwards through no fault of my own, really. It was just, won't say too much, but just really unprofessional handling. I was only a junior partner. The business was being affected positively, hopefully by me, but negatively by
others. What does a junior partner mean?
You don't have enough say in the matter. So really,
it sounds very corporate for an independent firm, doesn't it? Junior partner.
It was just I bought in, and I owned a certain share of the business, and my share wasn't as big as the partnership that were already in there. Yeah. And the partnership that was already in there, in hindsight, was too close, tight knit. So somebody else coming in, suggesting things, ultimately, it was always going to be what they decided to do. And I didn't have enough ability to impact.
Yeah. What were the early signs where you thought, oh, shit, that doesn't look quite right or feel quite right?
To be honest, there was problems behind the scenes. I wasn't overly involved with the finance side of it.
Yeah.
But
do you think that was a mistake?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Because money was being generated, but in all honesty, I got paid in a certain way in regards to like just invoicing. So I was a shareholder, but I got paid on invoice. So I got paid quite handsomely and good money, and I could have quite happily stayed, but things weren't being reinvested. If you got a business, you have success, you need to put money back in, because you can soon go from going in that direction. If you think, actually, we've made it, I'm going to start taking money out and doing other things with it, enjoying ourselves, then business can soon drop back. And then once you've gone up and you start coming down, it's probably twice as hard to get yourself moving forward again, because you're just in that habit of going backwards, and your results drop off and your staff get motivated. So I've normally been the instigator to get things moving forward, and I saw things starting to go back, and I was knocking myself silly trying to get them going forward again, and I knew I couldn't. What was your role within that business then? Was it? I was classed as a director, but I was just basically, my contacts really got the business going, and obviously my experience. So I was generating the business, the front end business, and the whole setup was basically leaning on the success that I was bringing. But then the money that was coming through on the back of that, to be honest, was not within my hands to control. And we just weren't. We got to the point where we actually overtook Michael Poole. We were second on market share in Middlesbrough, which was fantastic, because I think when I went there, we had 35 on the market, and we got up to about 160, I think, market share, which is huge. At that point, if we'd kicked on, I really do think we could have done things, because we were really busy. We were adding staff in. We added like remote agents, like Hunters did probably about 10, 12 years ago, they had people covering postcode areas and they were paid commission only, but they got like, say, 50% commission for everything that's sold. We introduced that because we were so busy. But then we didn't kick on, which is a shame in hindsight, but then I think ultimately it's probably happened for the best.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could say it definitely has, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because that brings us up to, I think, progressive?
Yeah.
Progression?
Well, it was sell your property fast first because COVID struck.
So just give us a brief overview of sort of where we're at now then, Craig. So you run 2 businesses at the moment?
Yeah. So got Progression Property, which is the main company for the estate agency and the sales the estate agency and the lettings business. So yeah, that's quite a busy business. We've got a hell of a lot of student-let properties, and we've got quite a large sort of residential rental portfolio going through there as well. Then obviously we've got the sourcing and the sales going through that business now as well. So that came after that opened in August 2021.
Is that when you opened that, August 2021?
Yeah, well, that was when we were registered on Companies House. We didn't open up to maybe about November that year officially. But then Sell Your Property Fast came during the good old COVID lockdown. Because of the setup with the old business at Easy Move, I wasn't benefiting from any of these grants and things like that. So I was a little bit cut adrift financially because obviously if we couldn't sell, I didn't get paid my invoicing commission. And if I wasn't entitled to the grants and stuff, then I was thinking, well, this could be a little bit tricky. And the world was showing out you can't do viewings on properties. You shouldn't do any travel unless it's essential. I was thinking, well, what on earth can I do here? So I just basically thought I've got clients who buy cash, they buy off videos. I can visit empty properties on my own. I don't have to be in contact with anybody. So why don't we just focus down on trying to find properties that are empty, proactively approach owners or letting agents to obviously contact them, say, well, weird times we're in. If we offered you some commission, if you passed on clients to us, how does that sound? And then we just literally pushed on and started selling a lot of property that was empty to remote buyers who didn't have to go and visit the area. Carried on through COVID, and to be honest, it took off and we did quite well and we had a steady flow and we started getting lots of business in County Durham, which is bizarre considering where we're based. But yeah, it worked really well through COVID and I had loads of time through COVID as well.
So how are you finding these empty properties and these owners?
Contacts, to be honest. We've got a good network. I won't give my secret away, obviously, because there might be prying eyes and ears who are going to try and steal my recipe. But just good contacts. You need people covering lots of areas. And obviously, people are aware of a property that is empty or vandalised or there's an issue with it, and they get rewarded for passing the details on. Then obviously, there's a little bit more to it than that, but obviously I won't go any further than that. But yeah, that's generally how it happens. We either go ourselves or it's referral basis.
And you go now getting a video, sending this to your buyer database, what you'd built up over the last sort of 10 years prior to that.
Exactly that, yeah. And obviously it's quite an easy job to a certain degree because you do one video, send it out to... I wasn't so aware of like these WhatsApp groups that are now really common. We don't have a WhatsApp group, but we were just doing that basically, firing the videos out to one of several clients on WhatsApp, and then generally in the market then, which was quite buoyant, prices had gone daft. If somebody was quite keen to sell, they didn't want to go on the market and they just needed shot quick, we got some quite decent prices for our buyers. As long as the vendors are happy, then we're doing our job really, aren't we?
Yeah, so obviously you're having success in 2020 with Sell Your Property Fast, and then Progression comes on a year after. What was the reason for doing that? Why didn't you just stay within that niche and double down on that?
It was quite a big decision, to be honest, and I'd got used to working at home, and probably working for yourself and not having to worry about stuff like I've already gone through. Like, you can just focus down, and there's a lot of perks of doing that, but I did miss the office environment, and I've always, in my working career, had a team around me, and I did sort of miss it a little bit during COVID. I got a bit cabin fever. I was working with a couple of other guys in doing it, but I just wanted to be back in an office again. And I had a lot of contacts that were wanting to sell houses that we couldn't, like your family house.
So you needed to stick online for
yeah, of course. So I had to have a base, and we had rental clients as well. So I just thought, well, you need an office if you got rentals. I know you proved the point that you maybe don't, but
Yeah.
we had a lot of tenants coming in paying cash because of our demographic, which is probably slightly lower than what your demographic maybe was. But yeah, the office was a decision that we made, and we just went for it, and like I said, opened in November 21 officially. Yeah, and it's just took off. It was just me and my dad in the early days. He did our sales progression. He just helped me before we employed the staff to keep things going.
Yeah, that's right, bloody hell, I remember. Yeah. I had a flashback. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because obviously I must have bought something through you in the 21 or whatever it was, and yeah, your dad was helping out then.
I think you had I think it was an investor one that we had in Hartlepool or something like that, and you provided the buy. I think that was one of my first. I knew of you, but I don't think I'd had much dealing with you until 2021.
Yeah. So what's that journey been like? Starting progression in 21. We're going into 2025 now. I'm sure there was lots of ups and downs. What's it been like?
To be honest, we're really lucky. I brought across some staff that I knew really well. I managed to choose the staff that we wanted. I had my dad working for me, so you know yourself, you work with your dad. If you can't trust your dad, then there's something wrong. So I had a really good trusted team. But one of my best friends, Peter, he obviously is a director of the business, so he came across. So we didn't really have any major issues in the early days, which is remarkable, and I think we got a bit spoilt with it, to be honest. Things just went on an upward trajectory. We did really well. We continued to do well. We kept getting rental instructions. Obviously, you build your portfolio. You know how important that is. You get your management fees through. You can latch on maintenance to that. Sales were going well. We introduced high street sourcing, which I know some agents were doing it, but I don't think there was too many that were doing like advertising that we are sourcers. We got a sign on the window, come in, we're sourcing agents. And just all took off. I had a couple of ideas. Bringing the sourcing in was a big thing, and it just took off. And I really appreciate, I've had support from people all the way through, like clients and people that have stuck with me, and I had friends supporting me, and I've had staff that supported me, and my dad supported me. So I've been really lucky, to be honest, because not everybody gets that.
So obviously they're the good times.
Yeah.
You're not going to ask.
It's been this year, to be honest. I think it's because we have been spoiled, but we haven't had shit. We've still done, our business is about 28% on the sales side, higher than it was last year, and last year was a record year compared to the year before, so we're 28% up, so I can't complain about business.
Growth.
But it's just issues have cropped up, like we've had staffing issues for the first time.
Takes a lot out of you, doesn't it?
It does.
Honestly,
it's tiring. It's you get invested in your staff, and it's just things have cropped up, and we've just had a steady flow of daft things that were totally avoidable, but it's just caused us a little bit of disruption, really, and a bit of distraction.
Yeah, so obviously when you had staffing issues, because you must have had staffing issues being a branch manager and a senior at other agencies, but do you think it had a different effect on you as the business owner rather than just a branch manager when you're having these issues?
Oh yeah, you take it personally.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
You take it personally. If you read a story, that daft example that something's happened to somebody else's kid at school, you're not happy about it. But if something happens to your kid at school, you've got a totally different demeanour on it because it's yours, isn't it? It's your child and it's your business. And I always say to people that my business, whatever I'm doing, is my additional child. Yeah. And you don't want anybody upsetting your child. You don't want anybody causing disruption with your child's life. And that's the way I look at business as well. It's I do get too heavily invested. That's one of my weaknesses, and working with Peter's a really good thing because he's Mr. laid back and I'm Mr. probably knee-jerk fiery, and I do get heavily invested and I do get worked up at times. So having Peter's been a massive thing for me, because if I didn't have Peter, I think I would, well, I don't know.
Don't you dread to think?
Because obviously I do knee-jerk at times, and I do respond probably too quickly if something crops up. And sometimes you need somebody next to you who's calm, and you're like getting yourself het up, and you look across the room, and he's sort of laid back in his casual demeanour, not particularly worried about it. And then you think, actually, if he's not worried about it, why am I getting worked up about it? Or we'll talk it through. If you've got your own business, who do you realistically talk to if you've got a problem? Wife or somebody outside the business, your friends who don't understand the business you're in. So yeah, I think Peter's been a massive thing for our business. We opened it together. I think Peter really keeps me on track.
He is like 50-50 partners in the business. So,
It's slightly weighted in a different direction in my favour, but to be honest, it doesn't come down to that. Like, we make joint decisions together. Peter, in a lot of ways, is better than me in many things. A lot more level-headed. He's got some massive strengths that I haven't got. But to be honest, we do fit well together. We've never had an argument yet.
Yeah.
We haven't even come close, to be honest, which is bizarre because I've had arguments with most of my friends, as people who know me will probably imagine. But I've never really had a crossword with Peter yet. 8 years of knowing him, so long may it continue, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, so you opened the business with Peter. How is he different to you in terms of the way he handles things?
Well, first and foremost, like, the main difference is obviously he's lettings based, which I needed because I did lettings at Reeds Rains and I didn't enjoy it. And obviously it's a common thing. You need patience to deal with tenants at times and problems and maintenance, and he's better at it than me, so that's part of the discussion. I'm sales, you're lettings, let's do something together. But just in regards to him, he just seemingly manages to keep himself, we said at the beginning, consistent and steady. I probably have more peaks and troughs just in general as a personality, where some days I'm higher than him, but then 2 days later I'm far lower than him. So he's just sort of steady across the board, and his behaviour is consistent. And he doesn't react. I don't think he's more passive, where if I think something needs saying, I'll say it. And sometimes, like, if we have a quick discussion, he'll say, look, just leave it. And I'll leave it. Got to go off his advice.
So he keeps you right.
Yeah. I've going back years, I retraced my steps quite a bit. When I was younger, in my very early youth, I had this is like bizarre, totally off track, I had quite a lot of like speech problems, like I had a stammer and I had a lisp, and I was quite quiet and reserved when I was younger. And I got to a point where I went to secondary school, and I went from like a primary school, and I was the only person who went to my secondary school. And I had a rough 2 years. A lot of people don't remember, but I was an easy target for people. And I was going down the route of probably being one of life's victims, because I still had my speech problem at that point. And I made a decision one day after whatever happened, being dragged around in the snow or something like that. And I thought to myself, you can't let this go on. So I got into boxing, and I went boxing for years, on and off, all the way up to early 30s. But I managed to create a different persona for myself. I went from Mr. Quiet and Mr. Reserved and obviously speech issues. And because I went boxing, I got more confident. My speech issues, like 99% went. But then I became a different person, like you become more popular. And I must admit, I got... If I didn't have a fight on a Friday night, then there was something wrong. Which is a bad thing, but I carried that through my life, and obviously that's why I got the fiery side to me from, because everybody was treated as a threat, and obviously, like, it's once you've been like that for so long, it's hard to then extinguish that. So I've still got that little bite in me. Obviously, I'm an old man now, or older man. I'm 43, but I'm a dad, but I've still got that little spark, and that's the thing that sometimes I need to extinguish, and that's what Peter comes in for.
Yeah. You spoke about your WhatsApp group. Is that something that you do now as like if property people are listening, do you do that, or how are you selling the deals?
I've ummed and ahed for ages about WhatsApp groups, but personally I don't like them. We've thought about it for a long time, and I see the benefits. I totally get it, and it works well for lots of companies, but I just don't like this, what I would class as like a splattergun approach. You get a property, right, we'll whack the video in there and we'll say who pops the head up. We try and be more specific, where we'll say, right, we've got a good house for those two people. We'll give them two people a ring, and we'll like literally, our sourcing, we will find you something. We don't just put it in a group you're in, we will find you something. And that's the route that we've stuck to. We keep having conversations every 3 months. Do we need to do a WhatsApp group? Toss the idea around, and we always decide, no, we don't. And we just stick to doing what we're doing. We haven't got as wide a catchment area or casting the net as far, but yeah, we've not decided to go down that route. We just literally do the old-fashioned sourcing. Yeah.
But when you started to do sourcing, you must have been like, wow, this is amazing, because I presume that your old jobs, it used to be paid upon completion.
Yeah.
Where this is like money up front, really, isn't it?
Middlesbrough being Middlesbrough, people are very keen for some reason to give everybody money. Like literally you'll meet somebody for the first time and they're already talking about giving you money for property related favours, or you do this and I'll give you that. And it was volunteered. Like when I first came to Bridgeford, there was none of that in Ripon. And literally more or less on my first viewing, somebody was like saying, if you find me a house and it's like this certain price in this area, I'll give you 500 quid. What? You're going to give me money for buying a house? I've never had that before. Like, how does that work? And it was a Middlesbrough thing.
Yeah.
And people would just volunteer stuff. Like people say, oh, well, anytime you want to fancy a pizza, go into my takeaway shop and just have it for free. I'll leave your name behind the counter. You can have whatever you want for free. And you're like, wait a minute, what's the reason behind this? But Middlesbrough has always been so like condensed, and there's so many people scrabbling trying to find property where people try and get in with somebody, by offering pizza or offering money or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's just the way Middlesbrough is. You've probably experienced that yourself, surely.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I obviously haven't dealt with your typical estate agent stuff. I've only ever really done sourcing. So, but speaking to people, well, when I sold my business, I was like, I'm not going back into property. But the reason I did is because I'm involved with Town and Country now, and that business model is like, you get paid there and then, you agree the deal, you exchange contracts and you get paid. There's no messing about. But yeah, one of the things which is frustrating if you run your business like that is solicitors can take 6 months or whatever, and then you don't get paid for 6 months, and yeah, it's just a terrible model, isn't it?
I'm always amazed the motivation of solicitors is just seemingly they still get paid on completion, so you would think they would want to work a hell of a lot quicker to get the sales through, but seemingly there's no motivation there. We've struggled to find. We've got a company who works within our office, who I can't praise enough, but just in general across the board, the standard of solicitors seemingly has never been lower, I don't think, which is a huge frustration, because especially this time of year we're trying to get sales through this side of Christmas, and the solicitors just don't have the motivation to match that. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I think from what I understand, it's high volume, low margin work for the practice. They want to focus their efforts on the big juicy cases where conveyancing is like a cookie cutter approach, sort of thing. It's low margin. And I think it's just the sheer volume as well. And I think the system that they're working with is broad. This is not me sticking up for solicitors, because I haven't dealt with one who I could hang my hat on and say, you're brilliant. But you just pick the best of a bad bunch.
You do, yeah.
But
you know what happens on the back of that? Somebody finds a good solicitor, they'll tell the mate that solicitor's good, and then they'll tell their mate, and before you know it, everybody's piling on that solicitor, and then they've got too much work on, and then they drift off in regards to results. What I've experienced. It's
similar concept with a builder, isn't it? Or tradesman, you don't want to give your builder's number out, because other people start using him, and then
contacts is everything, isn't it?
And you can't work on your project.
Keep your cards close to your chest, isn't it? That's the way forward. You don't tell anybody anything.
Tell no one now. Which is obviously why we're doing the podcast. But so talk to me about. Do you want to go a bit more into your challenges, or do you want to talk about sort of what the plan is going forward?
Well, challenges, to be honest, to a certain degree, and we had the chat just before we went live there, is just having time to think. Me and Peter are very hands-on with it. And I think we need to probably be a bit more hands-off, because just coming up with ideas and going in certain different directions, sometimes you get so carried away and you get dragged into the business too much. You don't have time to actually do what our role should be, which is obviously direct the business in a certain route, which is going to be even more profitable. So it's something that we're really working and thinking about going into next year, because you're the owner of a business, and as per the name, you're a director. You're meant to obviously steer the ship, aren't you? And sometimes if you're too busy doing the paddling yourself, then you don't really do it. So I think we just really need to nail down on what we're going to do, because we do lettings, we do sales, we do sourcing, and sometimes you just need to think, actually, this year we're going to focus on that one thing, we're going to still do that, but we're going to really focus on this and really push this side of the business forward. So that's really part of the plan for next year. Be a bit more specific in what we're doing rather than try and boost everything. Just think, right, what can we do, and focus down on something.
Yeah, I just produce. Obviously, you're running a few businesses inside of one, aren't you? Are you producing separate P&Ls for each business?
We used to run them as separate businesses. We just recently gone like merging them all into one, which is like Progression Property Northeast. Paperwork, nightmares, isn't it? You get HMRC letters and you get this, that and the other, and you're doing your returns and stuff, and even you're paying an accountant, you get dragged into it. So obviously just in regards to time, makes sense just to run it through one. But yeah, it's just we've just signed up to a new accountant. We're going to break things down into a lot finer detail, like management accounts and things like that. Because again, sometimes you get dragged along with the current, don't you?
Yeah. I was just literally having this conversation. It's like one of the things that I was certain on doing when I joined Town and Country was not only producing management accounts, but discussing them. By working day 5 the following month, because it's so easy just to say, oh yeah, we do them. They're on Xero or QuickBooks or Sage or whatever you use, but taking that time, that half a day, that day out of the office and printing it out and going through it line by line, it's huge.
Yeah.
And
I think sometimes you always go off the money, you go off the income, don't you? The money hits your bank and you think, right, there's been more money this month or there's been less money this month, and that's sort of what dictates your focus. But then you've got all these numbers that are vitally important. Like when I went to Bridgeford, breaking it down into like valuations, listings, sales, and like work out your ratios. Sometimes as your business owner, you think actually it's just about money, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if the money's coming in, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
If the money's not coming in, I'm not doing well. But problems often start a hell of a lot sooner before they rear their heads. Like a problem may start last year and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you're not on the ball, you don't notice it until it's a huge problem, and then you've got a hell of a task to address it. So yeah, we just need to. We're doing recruitment at the moment as well.
Who are you recruiting for?
To be honest, we're looking at like a business development manager, because I've been doing that role myself again. I took that on after the departure of the one that we had. I've done well in doing it and I've got the buzz back again and I enjoyed it, but then when other things crop up, you sort of get stretched in too many directions, and ultimately you just need somebody who's salesy, target-based, money-orientated, and right, I'm going to go out and really push it. So that's what we're going to be doing next year. And we want somebody else to add another member to the team to actually grow the team as well, because we just got to that point where, it's all a little bit tight, and if somebody goes on holiday, it's just a little bit too tight.
I know, holidays, that's something you don't think of, isn't it? It's like, well, I'm going to employ someone and it's going to take away this pain, but then as soon as they go on holiday,
you lost.
They have a day off, you're like, shit. Yeah, back to square one.
It makes you appreciate your staff though, because when they're there, you should appreciate them, but when they're gone, like, you don't half miss what they're doing.
100%.
And then the minute they come back from holiday, you give them a big hug and you say, you're not going on holiday again this year. But yeah, we just want to grow the team. We do want to expand, but like I said, this year's just been a better year figures-wise, but we've just probably tread water a little bit in regards to where we want to go, so we just want to get back on track next year and keep moving forward.
That's interesting, that, because if the businesses grew, or sales have grew by 28%, that's a pretty good year, isn't it? 28%, but is that not carried through with the bottom line, or has it just been too many issues in between that have sort of left us?
Obviously, things like increasing, I was on board, obviously, like income-wise, increasing fees obviously increases your
top line,
percentages, so obviously you get more money come through the business, but I think it's just more that we've not taken advantage of the opportunities that have come our way. There's a hell of a lot more that we could have done this year and we haven't had a chance to do it, and you end up kicking yourself at the end of the year because you think actually we've done well this year, but you know for a fact you could have done better, and that's probably more frustrating than anything else, because you look at it like we've had a good year, but you know what, we've missed an opportunity here this year. We could have kicked on more, and that's where we're at, because I'm pleased with the year, but I'm frustrated with the year as well. It could have been more than what it's been, but then obviously it focuses the mind for next year. What will happen next year?
What do you think your challenges will be next year?
Getting the right people into the positions, because you often get people seem brilliant at interviews, don't you? Because you can put that face on the salespeople at the end of the day. They can put on a really good performance in the interview, and then you don't always get what you sign up for. You think, actually, these are going to set the place on fire. I've been quite lucky, to be honest, but it's that risk, isn't it? Because you you bring somebody in, it doesn't take off, you've still got to work with them, and you've got your probationary period, but then you've still got to show that you're trying to help them. You can't just sort of make a knee-jerk decision. But yeah, it's just getting the right people in. Where them people are currently, I don't know, but we just need to try and get people in early. End of quarter one, we need somebody in. So that's our challenge for early next year.
I think it's going to be a race, because obviously we're hiring for a BDM as well, so we'll all be fighting for the.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will be in the same position, won't they? Just because of how would you describe the market at the moment?
To be honest, it's changing. Obviously, the interest rates and things like that, and there's various issues like selective licensing coming into central Middlesbrough a lot more. A lot of lenders are pulling out of central Middlesbrough, being a lot more picky in general. As a wider market, it's still really busy. If you get the right property at the right price, then it will sell. It's just that the competition in Middlesbrough is just vast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's two very, very valid points. I think, property, right price, you won't have an issue in selling it, but it is so competitive, isn't it?
The problem on the back of that as well is, like, some companies, they employ a lister, like somebody go out and win the business, get property on the market, they get paid commission for getting the property on the market. So they'll go out, and everybody knows the house is worth £100,000, for example. They need to get that signature to earn their £75. So they'll go out and they'll flatter the owner and they'll say, you know what, it's worth 120, we'll get you 115 easy. Everybody likes to hear that they're going to get more money than what they were realistically expecting. So that person gets dragged into, we'll go with that agent. He was really confident and we're going to get more money now as well. Sign the contract, 20 weeks, get no interest, but then they'll end up reducing with that agent after, say, 6 weeks. And then they'll probably reduce again at a later date, and they'll end up getting down to that point where it's the right price. And it might sell, but then it's that misleading up front. It's just something I don't want to be doing, and some agents are going down that route, which
I couldn't
frustrating.
Be asked. I couldn't be asked doing it. I wouldn't want to be doing it. I could understand why it would have been business and stuff, but from a personal point of view, I just couldn't be asked doing it. It's like, this is what we can sell it for.
Yeah.
If you want it sold, let's sell it. If you want to list it and see what happens, then we're probably not the best person.
But you obviously own your own home, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you look to sell it and you thought it was worth X amount, if somebody came around and told you that it's worth £20,000 more, you'd probably have enough insight to think, actually, you're talking nonsense there. But some people do get dragged into it, sadly. But it's just getting more and more competitive. It's all about instructions.
Yeah. I mean, something that pissed me off was, not pissed me off, I just saw red flags straight away, was when, I won't name, but a certain agent come round and their fee model was £500 up front, but only 0.25% on completion. And that ran red flags for me straight away, because it was so the others were charging 1 to 1.5% on completion. And these guys were charging £500 up front, so straight away it's just a sign-up model, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's just a sign-up model.
It's just want to get cash flow coming through, and then the motivation to sell it is diminished, because obviously if you're at risk of getting nothing and you're getting a decent fee at the end of it, if you sell it, you're going to really work to sell it. But if you get any money up front, like Purple Bricks when they first started off, $999, whatever happened, you got to pay them the fee. So they win the signature, whether it sells or not, you're paying them $999. And it took off, and then obviously it crashed, didn't it? Because I think people became wise to the hard sell, going on the market, too high price, pay the money up front, no motivation from the call centre that they had, staff didn't know what they were doing. And obviously that model seemingly dropped off, didn't it, quite rapidly, Purple Bricks. Yeah, it's still in operation, but
they went bankrupt, didn't they? I think they strike by them for £1.
I think so, yeah, next to no money, but they went up like an absolute rocket. That longevity thing we were talking briefly about, it's the ultimate opposite to that, isn't it? If you do that model, it's a short-term get-rich-quick scheme, and then obviously people catch on and you lose respect to the people that are putting the property on with you. So, yeah, it's not all about quick money, is it, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started working together, it was a breath of fresh air really working with you as an agent, because you could speak to them about investments and sourcing and stuff, where a lot of other agents don't even want to entertain it, do they? They just don't understand, they don't understand it. But do you think that's really separated you from the other agents?
I think it does from corporates, because I don't think corporates have caught on to sourcing, have they? If you go to even Bridgeford's and your Manners and Harrison and things like that, if somebody rings up and they register an applicant and that applicant says I'm a sourcer, you probably get a closed door on your face. I think that's still the mentality of, well, we only want to show the person who's actually buying the property and we want more information and things like that. So I don't think the corporates have latched on to what is a very big market. Obviously, sourcing is a huge market. I know you've had some sourcing superstars on here. Just shows how big the market is. They've done fantastic, but I don't think corporates are quite caught on, have they?
No, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because it's a much better business model, but it comes with this reputation. And rightly so as well, I think, because there's some really bad ones out there. But it is a lot better business model than your traditional sales route.
That's one thing that we've done with sourcing, actually. We don't take our fees up front, which is another old-fashioned bone of contention. But if I source a deal out, I want to have the motivation and show the client I've got the motivation there to still work hard on getting that deal through. Because if you get paid up front and you've got a property and you pass it on to them, I still don't think you're going to be quite as motivated to help that client get hold of that property.
No,
so I still do it the old-fashioned way on that as well. Like, we don't get paid anything until you get your keys. I think it works quite well because some people just don't like paying money up front. They hear all these horror stories. Facebook groups are just awash with people saying, I paid that company £4,000 up front and that deal didn't materialise, and don't pay money up front then.
Yeah,
which is my opinion of offering it.
No, it's valid. And I understand their argument as well of taking it up front because there's that many time wasters. And I don't think people, the sources, for argument's sake, I don't think they are respected enough by the investor. You know, it's like, well, I might go with it, might not. I'll waste your time a little bit. I'll say I'm going to go with it, but then I'm actually not. It's like, well, no, we need some commitment from you, you know.
We are in the... taking, like a contribution up front, so like the vast bulk end's taken at the end, but obviously you need some commitment from the buyer as well, don't you? Because otherwise it could quite easily mess you about and pull out and things like that. So yeah, I think you need the commitment, but I just don't want other people's money sat in my bank account, because obviously you get all these fees up front. If some start falling off, you never quite know where your balance is, do you? Because you've got some money in there which isn't actually yours until it's gone through. So yeah.
Are you still? Do you love property sales? Like, do you love doing it? Does it give you that buzz?
I've had this conversation a lot recently. Like I said, it's been a more testing year, but I still do love it. I still get the buzz. I had to step back into doing the front end role, and for about the first 3 weeks of doing it, I was like a dog with two you-know-whats, because I was dashing all over and I was on the phone and I was going in the house, doing the front end stuff, and I've got to buy for that, I'll ring him, he's made an offer already, and then I'd go back in the house after being outside for 10 minutes, I've already sold it. You've what? I've already sold it. And then you're getting the details off, and then you ring the office, I've been out to the house 10 minutes ago, I've just sold it, and they're like, well, how have you sold it? You've only been there 10 minutes. Well, and you make some kind of sarky joke to them, well, that's how I roll, isn't it? And then you get that buzz, don't you? And you go back and you're driving around with a bit of a smile on your face, and you think, actually, I've been doing it 20 years, but then I've just sold a house for 35,000, and I'm driving around and it's made my day, or it's made my morning, and you think, actually, well, I might have had a bad spell, but if I'm getting that buzz off it, I don't think I'll get that buzz being sat in a surveying office or something, looking at plans. So yeah, I still think I'm doing the right thing. There might be a day that changes, but yeah, the good days outweigh the bad.
So where do you want to take it over, say, the next 3 to 5 years? You know, if you could write the perfect plan for the next 3 to 5 years, what would it be?
As mentioned before, there's a few new ideas that I've got that I want to explore. But in regards to what we've got currently, just obviously want to keep on growing. We just want to get some staff in and really push. There is a big gap in the market. I think there's so many good property people in Middlesbrough. It's actually good to see. Like, everybody's got a slightly different idea where there's nobody doing exactly the same thing. Everybody's got a different angle on it, or they've got a different sort of end product where their buyers buy for a certain reason, and people are doing refurbs, or people have gone into sort of more of the construction and development side of it rather than the sales. And I won't mention the names, but there is lots of companies and lads that are doing really well, and it's good to see. I'm not really interested in competing with other people's ideas, because I think sometimes you're just an imitation, aren't you? And if somebody's made a success out of it, it's not my thing to try and copy. I want to really just push on doing what we're doing, which is probably the more traditional estate agency. but really there's still opportunity there for it, I think. And we're very personable as well. I think, again, there's a lot of corporates around still getting business. I want to nip away at their market share because I think ultimately the fees are too high for the service to get. There's plenty of properties that are available that are just sat on the market with other agents. I'd rather them be sat on with us and us work a lot harder and get them sold. So there's always opportunity. I think that's what keeps you going, isn't it?
So would you say do more of what you're doing now, focus on sales, don't get shiny penny syndrome and try and do developments and construction and stuff like that?
We're in a roundabout way. We're working, we've got some close relationships with other companies and property people in Middlesbrough and County Durham. And if they have an idea, we're offering a service that links in with their idea. So we're merging and developing our business or morphing our business to go with what's working for other people. So if somebody is doing really well and they're making, like for example, doing HMOs in Sunderland, then we're stretching out our catchment area and trying to find suitable properties for them in Sunderland, knowing that we've got a ready-made buyer there. If people's looking at certain properties, like ex-councils in Coundon or Newton Aycliffe, then we're dragging our business away, focusing on that area, knowing we've got a solid client there. Because if you make a claim that you can sell it, if you can't sell it, it's probably worse than not making the claim at all. So if we know we can do it, that's where we're pushing. So I'm working closely with some other businesses and we're just working together. We know that they'll benefit, we'll benefit from it, and obviously we're working together. And for me, I like teamwork. That's why I wanted to be back in the office, because working together with somebody, if I find a house, they buy it, we get the sourcing fee off them, but they do their thing with it, then we're all winning, we're all doing better.
It's an interesting way to look at it, isn't it? To morph your model to these other companies who have buyers and strategies on the back end, and you go out and find them properties, and you've got the ready-made buyers. It's an interesting way of looking at it.
We want to sort of cement our core business, but if somebody makes a market work and they've proven it and they've been doing it for 2 years and it's going in that direction, it's an easy out for us if we invest a bit of money in a certain area and we can put anything we get from it property-wise with somebody that is guaranteed to buy it. Sometimes you find houses, you get them on the market and you can't sell them, there's no demand there. If you know there's a demand there, then why would you look in an area where there's no demand, and when you've got somebody shouting and screaming at you for properties in a certain area, it just makes sense. It's working smarter, I'd say. I think it's Peter's phrase, work smarter, not harder, and that's what we're trying to do.
If you had one piece of advice for your younger self, Craig, what would it be?
Tough one. Very tough one. I've got lots of faults that I would probably tell myself at a younger age to probably work on, but I'd probably say in the early days, be more confident in yourself, because I think sometimes confidence is quite hard to get at times, and you do question yourself too much, and I probably wasted a good chunk of my younger life not being confident enough, and then I probably dilly-dallied working for a corporate for too long. And when I left Bridgeford's and I went into a partnership, didn't have to. Should have done it on my own back then, and I would have been probably an extra 3 or 4 years down the path where I wanted to go. So it wasn't necessarily a confidence thing, but sometimes, it's a big jump, isn't it, to go self-employed totally, because the buck stops with you. But then sometimes you think, actually, I'm good enough. I've proven I'm good enough. I've done it for however long. Why would it go wrong the minute I go self-employed? But sometimes you have that bit of a question, don't you? So I probably wish early 30s, I probably would have just done something on my own and probably had an extra 4, 5, 6 years under my belt.
So would that be go for it sooner?
Yeah, believe in yourself a bit more.
Believe in yourself. And
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
People can tell you that you're good at your job. Sometimes it's like you don't always believe that you are. Sometimes you think that success is luck. And I've been fortunate, and it's not actually down to me. It is down to me a bit, but I've had good people around me, and sometimes it's quite easy to look at yourself. And you're a bit more critical when you don't actually see what everybody else sees, and you don't realise how good you potentially are at something. And I think those people that do know what they are and they do think that they are good enough, they tend to push on a bit quicker, I think. So yeah, I'll probably just say, just pull your finger out a bit sooner, and you should have gone for it sooner.
What are you working towards? Is it a monetary value? Is it a, location, freedom? Is it bigger? Like, what are you working towards?
This is a question that somebody asked me about a week ago, and you know what? I haven't got an answer, which is a bad thing. Obviously, I've had a couple of discussions with you about what plans could be, but I set off doing it without really knowing what the end game was and what I wanted to achieve. I just, I like the battle, I like the sort of scrap, and I like the challenge, and that's really the main attraction for me. And obviously, the money comes, it's a byproduct, and we all like money, makes the world a better place, and it's nice to. But for me, it's the challenge, and I never really thought, right, in 20 years from now, where do I realistically want to be? And it was just brought to my attention probably about 6 months ago. I saw somebody asked the question for the first time, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? And I didn't have an answer for it, which is probably a bad thing. So that's part of what I'm thinking about at the moment. We've got 2 young kids. They might not fancy going into property. Peter's got a daughter. Well, he's got 2 daughters, but one's not going down that route. But his younger daughter, she might want to get into property. But then obviously you get to the point, if they don't want to go into property, then what happens to the business? Do we have to look at selling at that point? And so, yeah, I think I need to work out where I'm going to go for the next 10 years or so. And I don't fancy working until I'm 65. So I'm 43. I need to make a decision what 10 years from now looks like.
I think one good way to have that is just to allow yourself time to think. So like, get out of environment, try and switch your phone off for a day or so, and just ideally go, out of environment, abroad if you can, and just have some time to really think about what it is you want, and then you'll probably think of it and you'll come back, and then it'll probably change a month later. Which I've done that before. I've went away and I've really thought about it, and I thought, this is where I'm headed now. It's this direction. And I've come back, and it's like, no, I don't want that anymore. Something else. So it's a funny one.
We had a conversation the other night, and I'd sent you a message about something which we obviously won't discuss, and you messaged back and said, "Have you had a bad day, Craig?" Do you remember?
Yeah.
That wasn't totally incorrect. Obviously, it is something that I'd been thinking for a while, but obviously it's been a slightly rougher couple of months, and that's what's got me thinking. Obviously, like long term. Do I want to deviate away? Is there a different route I can go down? Can we add something to progression property that obviously might work? And I have started to think, like, being a dad's difficult when you're a business owner. You're probably experiencing that yourself now. And do I want to be a stressed, sort of busy dad all through my kids' youth? Or do I want to be a slightly more at-home dad because I'm not being so hands-on? So we've got a really good, solid business. It's generating good money. We're going in the right direction. But obviously, my position within that, I haven't quite got it right because I am busy. I am stressed. I should be probably spending more time with the kids. But again, the years fly by, don't you? You just get dragged. You get dragged along, and you need that. Exactly what you said. You need some time just to turn the phone off. I'm going to have a week off. What's the plan?
It's a good time to do it. Christmas time, going into the new year as well.
Yeah. I'm going to take a bit of time off over Christmas, coincidentally, just to do the Christmas thing. But yeah, I've got a list of things that I want to address, and I want to spend time with the family. But I've got a list of questions to myself, including what does 10 years from now look like, and I want to come back with the answers.
Have you ever done any like personal development, like training and stuff? Have you ever like done that mindset-y sort of
I haven't.
thing?
No.
I think you'd enjoy it.
Presumably you've done it yourself then, is this?
Yeah, I've done it myself.
On the back of experience.
Quite early, yeah.
So what does that actually look like then?
That's a good question. I didn't realise I was actually doing that. I thought I was doing property training. But I ended up getting a lot of mindset stuff as well. It's good. It's about sort of, setting your North Star. Let's say this is what I'm working towards, and reflected on, why. Just keep asking yourself why. Why do I react like this? Why do I think like this? Why do I think of myself like this? A lot of reflection could reveal things, and things start making a bit more sense. And
so was it quite a deep?
Can be, yeah. Can be. For me, I mean, I don't know whether this is right or wrong, but I don't feel like I've had that much, thankfully, had that much trauma, or yeah. So, but people who I've been in the room with, it's been like transformational for them. It's been amazing for them. But I do like to keep on top of the mindset stuff, personal development books, and taking time out of things, because ultimately that was why I sold the business. I just didn't have enough time to think. I was running around like a headless chicken. You're like, what am I doing this for? Like, I'm...
Especially when you've got family on the way or you've got a child at home, then it does make you think what's important.
Like, I'm earning good money. I can do what I want, but I could probably do that without all this headache as well.
Don't you think it's probably sounds quite an arrogant thing? It's quite easy to earn money in property, isn't it? I think you've had this discussion before. Like, if you wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, you'd probably have to sell maybe 1 or 2 source deals a month. Work from your back bedroom, work from home, decent fees these days, and you could quite happily probably commit how much, 10 hours a month?
Once you're up and running, I mean,
to like find just 2 deals a month to like cover your cost. You could actually have a reasonable life on the back of that. So if you got £3,000, £4,000 off the buyer, then that's not bad living, is it, for a lot of people? But I think sometimes you want more than that, don't you?
Yeah, it's like you said, like you had that itch to get back into that office environment. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm going through now. That's...
I was going to say it must be good for you. It must be good, but it's like when people retire to say, "Oh, it's great," and then you always get the ones that end up going back to work again. Obviously, I know you're not retired, but I think people get away from what they used to, and then they enjoy it. But then you start getting that little urge to be a bit more hands-on again, I think.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, my exit was far from a retirement exit, like far from it. But you have got that freedom. It's like, well, I don't need to go to work I could not work for a couple of years, which is a crazy, and I don't have to answer to anyone.
How's that actually affected you though, like your motivation in life, having that buffer?
Yeah, I actually took a dip. It actually took a dip, and I'm definitely guilty of becoming a bit complacent as well, like not making the phone call when I know I really should, not following up when I know I should, not getting back to someone when I know I should, because like, well, I don't need to, because I can go on holiday, I can go wherever, I can spend as much time at home with the little one as I can. And I done a bit of reflecting, and that's what I done. I got myself out of the environment and thought, this is actually what I want to do, and put an event on, because that's what I thought I wanted to do. Now, so what I thought is, like, anything which I feel like a bit scared to do, that's what I need to do. And then putting an event on was one of those things, and then start mentoring people as well, which is what I wanted to do. And then I realised just people weren't like showing up to calls and stuff, and it's like, I'm putting more effort into this than you. And then you do get a good buzz from helping someone, but it's a bit of like, it just wasn't, when people weren't putting as much effort into it than you are. It's like, I can't be asked for this, like, so
that's one thing I must admit I've always thought about doing, like the mentoring side, because I always think like estate agents are some of the best people to get advice from. Personally, obviously I'm biased, but being in the industry, like the full industry, then business generation and obviously techniques and how do you find properties and things like that, that's your daily job as an estate agent. And there's not many estate agents, like literally traditional estate agents with a lot of experience, that do these stand-up like mentoring programs to like let people know. Because I think if you're a successful estate agent, you've done all these things that somebody needs to be doing if they want to like source property and things like that. So I've always had a team below me, and I like seeing people, like develop and succeed and things like that, and offering advice. So that was one of the things I was considering potentially bringing to our business.
Yeah.
Because we can say that we've got a hell of a lot of experience. We've made estate agency work. Our proactivity and our ideas that we've got have obviously worked. So we're in a good position to advise people. But it's a time issue again, because obviously you need to commit a lot of time to doing it. So it's that was something that I was going to say was, but I think I've just maybe talked myself back into it a little bit there. Is on the agenda.
It's good for deal flow as well. Good for deal flow, good for building out a network, good for good for everything. It's just, I think if you've got a team with you, that's one of the attractions for me for working with Town and Country, because like there was like 2 other partners, directors in the business, and then 4 other employees. So you're going into that team environment, because it can be lonely, can't it? Running a business by yourself. Because I really didn't have like a Peter either. I spoke to Chris before this, and he's got 2 other business partners as well. And yeah, it's
Just pros and cons. People always say, didn't you fancy doing it on your own? Which is like no disrespect to Peter. It's just a question, isn't it? Because people think, well, you're going in partnership, you're half in the money or whatever. But I think sometimes you wouldn't. Yeah, I think personally for me, it's good to have a partner.
I do as well, yeah.
Because you need somebody there who can stand up to you if you need standing up to, pick you up if you need picking up, or whatever it is. And if you don't have somebody directly, like speaking to your wife or your partner, it's great, and you get your general life advice, but they haven't got a clue about property or...
They'll probably just tell you what you want to hear as
yeah,
well.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you're brilliant, darling. But you don't sometimes need to hear that, do you?
No.
If somebody's working with you closely and you go to them with a problem and they know what your problem is, then they're going to tell you. But if you're sat in the office and you go home and you tell your wife or you tell your friends or you tell your parents, they don't know what your problem is because they aren't seeing it. And it's very difficult to ask people for help or advice, isn't it, sometimes?
It is, definitely, yeah.
Because you go home, if you've had a bad day, you put a smile on your face or you try. Have you had a good day, darling? Yeah, I've had a good day. You haven't, but you don't want to take that problem home. So I think having that in the office, you can hopefully, if you need something, you can get it straight away.
Yeah, I think partnerships, if done right, it's like 1 + 1 = 4, isn't it, with a partnership? You know what I mean? It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's you're actually getting more than the value of each other.
I think partnership in property as well. Like I've worked with you alongside you in property deals now for 3-4 years or so. There's lots of other people that I'm working against, and in the old days, used to be classed as a rival. I'm not helping him or whatever, and you get quite territorial and you don't want to work together. It's my business. That they're a rival. I don't want to work with them, but there's massive, massive advantages about building relationships with other rival businesses because everyone's got their own strengths, and if you can sort of work together without standing on each other's toes, then it's amazing how much you can uplift your business and you can uplift everybody else's business around you, and it's that team spirit I think is really good. I used to be very territorial when I was at Bridgeford. It was like, it's us versus them, like that mentality, but being self-employed, the more people that you can integrate with, it makes your job a bit easier, doesn't it? And I can't sell one, so I send it to you, or you can't sell one, so you send it to somebody else, and you have that network of business that just gets passed around. It's like a little networking event, isn't it? It's like a lot of people still don't appreciate how important that is. Some people will not deal with a rival, but I don't know what your thoughts are, but I've softened a lot recently.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's mega, isn't it? It's like you can generate business or make money by who someone else knows. So if you know someone, I can make money off that, and you can make money off that, and potentially they can make money off that as well.
Yeah.
Just from who I knows, if you know what I mean.
Or if you've got a property that you've laboured with selling, you pass it to somebody else, and you're out doing some other job, and you get a text through, and the person that you sent it to texts you, say, "Oh, all done."
Yeah.
Sold, and we've got whatever fee is, $4,000 fee, $5,000 fee to split. You think, bloody hell, I've not even focused on that, and he's done the job for me, and it's great, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like that one. I think I was on holiday, and the guy that I was mentoring at the time, he found a property. He asked me, could I sell it? I put him in touch with you. I think we all made like $2,000.
I know exactly, yeah. And as well, you can get ideas off each other, as in like, we've got a property. What's the best way we can get the best result out of it? There's two of us involved. We need to think quite creatively without overstepping the mark. But then you might have ways that you've done it in the past that work for you. I've got ways that have worked for me, and then you have that little bit of a crossover. But it's not like pinching ideas, but you sort of like uplift yourself. You get more experience by dealing with other people. And I've spent a lot of time the last few weeks. I've been meeting people. You know yourself, you're involved in property. People will approach you and like, "Oh, Craig, do you fancy coffee? Craig, do you fancy a chat?" And I've felt quite bad recently because you get these messages through, and you really want to get back to them, but then you haven't got time. And then like you scan through your Facebook Messenger, and you've had a message 4 weeks from somebody like sending the phone number, expecting the call back, and you think, "Oh God, I haven't rang them." But the network's just getting bigger and bigger. And I'm not sure what you get, but I'll probably get about 6 Facebook messages a day from like new people to say, "It'd be great to connect, Craig. It'd be great to connect. Shall we grab a coffee? Do you want to grab a Zoom call or whatever?" And like, you want to do it, but you just haven't got the time. So I do generally stick with the same people like yourself, and there's, without mentioning names, there's probably about 5 or 6 other people.
Yeah.
And I haven't added many new people to that in the last year or so, and that's another probably development area for me.
But you can obviously only focus on that when you get people in who can take the heavy lifting off you on the day-to-day, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's easy out, isn't it? If you know you've got a guaranteed buyer somewhere, you don't think about actually we broaden our horizon a bit. We'll try and tout it to some new people, try and find some new buyers. You always go to that easy win, don't you? So you just keep firing to them. But if you get a property that they're not interested in, it's quite easy to think, oh, God, I haven't got anybody else to sell it to now. So, yeah, it's. I think it's going to be another... We need more buyers, to be honest. We're still going to use people like yourself, but, yeah, we just need to stop going to the direct route and a quick win.
Yeah.
Which is something that we're going to be looking at next year.
So if anyone, on that note, if anyone is wanting to buy a property or source property with you, Craig, how can they get in touch with you?
Best probably dropping me a message. I can give my phone number. Is that the given thing to give the phone number? Or drop
Facebook probably.
Yeah, I'd say
email.
Facebook's the best route, or our website. It's got contact us route. It's got the email address on there. But yeah, we definitely want to speak to people, but it's going to be the big plan for next year. We want to really push on and first quarter of the year really build our buyer database.
Where can they find you on Facebook and what's your website?
Facebook, it's just Progression Property. I've got my own personal business page, which is Craig Sorden at Progression Property /Property Fast. So contact me via there, really.
And website?
Website www.progressionproperty.co.uk. Best off, please ring in the office. You can dig our details off Google. So yeah, I'll always try and get back to somebody. It's not necessarily going to be a quick phone call back, but yeah, I'll always try and get back eventually.
Thanks so much for coming on, mate.
No problem. Appreciate it. Thank you.